Hi, welcome to the Doorway to the Word. Today we're going to continue the book of Job, episode 6, Job's Opening Monologue. Well, in previous episodes we talked about the background of this book. We talked about who Job was. We talked about how his suffering began. And we even talked about the conversation with his wife. And we talked about the Job's friends. 3 friends arrived and their background. And that's a prologue. Well, now in this episode 6, we are going to get into the main part of this book. The conversation, discussion, the argument between Job and his friends in search for the reason of the suffering of this righteous man, Job. Well, at the end of the prologue, when Job's friends arrived, they wept and mourned together with Job, and they sat with Job for 7 days and 7 nights in silence. After the 7 days and 7 nights, Job finally began to speak. And his speech was not about academics, or it's not about a theological discussion, but he poured out his emotions, his pain, his agony, what is inside him towards God. Well, he cursed the day he was born. He said, I wish this was the end of the world. He even pleaded God to erase the day he was born, that he would not exist to experience this suffering. Then he cursed the life given after his birth. He said, why did you allow me to live only to experience this suffering? Then he went on to curse the very existence, the creation of himself. In verse 16 said, why was I not hidden away in the ground like a stillborn child, like an infant who never saw the light of the day? And he even cursed the hope in life by saying, why is the light given to those who in misery, and life to the bitter of soul, to those who long for death, that the death does not come. See, he cannot find the hope, the light in his life. And he questioned about the reason for the hope in life, if the life is all about this suffering. In verse 23, he said, why is life given to man whose way is hidden, whom God has hedged in? In the variant translation, it says, why is life given to those with no future, those God has surrounded with difficulties? What he was saying, what is a hope for those people whose life is all about suffering, like me? Basically, he was saying, what is the point of my existence if my existence is about suffering? May as well I don't exist. That's what Job was saying. He was ranting, or more like pouring out his pain and agony. Well, we all know, and we say to people, well, there must be something good that God is doing behind it. There's a God's sovereign plan working behind it in your suffering. We know that because we have the book. But at this moment, Job could not think about anything else but his suffering. You see, in his humanness, he could not understand the God's sovereignty behind his suffering. And do you know what? It's okay. God knows that. And so that's why God let him spew out, the pouring out his emotions. Sometimes when we have a conversation with God, we need to begin our conversation with the pouring out what's inside of us. Being honest with God is the beginning of our relationship with Him. And I believe God wants us to do that. Quite often that we try to put the good appearance towards God so that we will be on the good side, on the good book of God. But you know what? God already knows what's inside of us. All the bad bits and dirty bits and the horrible bits. And He still loves us. And He's saying, be honest with me, because I already know. In Psalm 139, the psalmist says to God, God, you already know everything of my thoughts. Even before I speak it out, you know everything about me, because you created me. You see, it's no point putting a good appearance towards God, so that God said, oh, you're a good boy, or you're a good girl. No, God said, be honest with me, because I already know. I want you to pour out what's inside of you so that you know what you've got. Then we can sort things out. You see, God wants us to be honest with Him in our conversation with Him, in our relationship with Him. And this is how Job started in this quest for the search of the reason behind his suffering, what is going on. And that's where everything begins, our honesty with God. And this is the chapter 3, the Job's opening monologue, kind of illustrating to us. Job's ranting, pouring out, complaining, and even cursing his existence, which God created him. But God likes that. I believe wanted him to do that before He could reveal what is going on behind the scene. But the reaction to his comment, the Job's comment, this outpouring, the pouring out of his emotion, Job's 3 friends reacted rather harshly. And we're going to find out what their reactions are, and their statements and thought behind their statements in next episode, episode 7. Until then, God bless. Goodbye.